Take it to our final session of the day, program funding and grants, accelerating progress in tire recycling. And it truly is my pleasure to introduce Nick Amonte, one of the best, our moderator for this session. So Nick, take it away.
Thank you so much, Kyle. My name is Nick Amonte. I am one of the section managers in CalRecycle's Financial Resources Management branch within the Division of Circular Economy, and I am pleased to introduce you today to five speakers that will share various funding opportunities. Our speakers today will be C. Mua, Senior Program Manager with the California Alternative Energy and Advanced Transportation Financing Authority, also known as CATFA. Then we will hear from Scott Beckner, Environmental Program Manager with CalRecycle's Business Assistance and Market Development section, followed by Jeffrey Lynn, Supervisor with CalRecycle's Business Assistance and Market Development section. Noel Davis will then present. Noel is a grant manager within CalRecycle's Division of Circular Economy. And then we will conclude the session with a presentation from Joe Javorchek, CEO of 3D Plastics, Inc. I will now hand it over to C. Mua, Senior Project Manager at the California Alternative Energy and Advanced Transportation Financing Authority, to start her presentation. C, please go ahead and begin.
Okay, let me just get my slide going here. Just want to make sure that everyone can see it. So thank you, Nick. I want to thank the CalRecycle team for having me today, and really the setup crew. You guys have really outdone yourselves. As Nick mentioned, my name is C. Mua. I am the Senior Program Manager, and today we'll be talking about the Sales and Use Tax Exclusion Program. So this is a program that's under the California Alternative Energy and Advanced Transportation Financing Authority. I know that's a really long name. Did take me quite a few years to get that down. So again, short for this name is CATFA. We are an authority that is housed in the state treasurer's office. Really, the program is focused on using public dollars to attract and unlock larger amounts of private investment to help grow the California green economy. Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to shift there. So really the goal of the program is to create quality manufacturing jobs while reducing the state's greenhouse gas emissions. All right, quick program overview. So this is again a tax incentive program. It's very different from a tax credit program, which there are quite a few out there. And so this program is geared towards manufacturers that are in the green space. So those that are looking to build, relocate, or expand in California. And what it does is it supports manufacturing equipment for those that are building in the state. So on average, it'll be 8 to 10%, just depending on which county you are located in. But what happened is a project will get approved. They'll apply, they'll get approved. Once approved, they'll go to a vendor, purchase the equipment, and then at the time of the sale, the vendor will go ahead and exclude any sales or use tax. The program is allotted $100 million in sales tax each year. And if you want to put that into dollar terms, it's over $1 billion in equipment purchases. Right now, our program is set to expire January 1st, 2028. So we're already mid-cycle this year. However, we're just still reviewing our first application round. We'll have another round next year, and hopefully we'll get legislation to reauthorize extending our program. Okay, so this talks about the different eligibility pathways. And so I did say that it geared towards manufacturers, but very specific manufacturers. And so it would include alternative source manufacturers. So if like you're making renewable hydrogen, or you're taking, manure and turning that into renewable biogas, or if you're like creating energy storage, those are all eligible products. Under the advanced transportation pathways, products could include electric cars, electric batteries, electric drivetrains. Those would be eligible. We also have our recycling pathway. which, we've supported projects such as tire recyclers, metal recyclers, plastic and compost. So plastic recyclers and then compost makers. And then our last eligibility pathway here is the advanced manufacturing pathway. And this is a really broad pathway in that we don't really look at the product that you're making, but essentially the process in which you're deploying. And so if you have a manufacturing process that is making a product in a more sustainable manner, such as, saving on energy usage, reducing water usage, generating, less solid waste, things of that sort, then that could potentially be eligible. But since we're talking about recycling today, I will focus on how we define recycling. And so the way that we define recycled feedstock is that it's materials that would otherwise be destined for disposal, having completed their intended use. Um, and a requirement and a requirement of that is that the equipment that is approved must be used to process recycled feedstock that is reused in another product or used in or used in compost or a soil amendment. To date, we have approved about 37 recycling projects. So dedicated about $670 million in equipment to those projects, which comes out to about $56 million in tax savings benefits. And so, again, just there, the bullet points right there are, it lists some of the projects that we've approved in the past. Okay, so application evaluation. So in order for someone to be eligible, they would have to apply first. And there are a couple of things that we look at to determine whether it's a viable project and how they would qualify. And so first thing we do is we look at the fiscal benefits. So really what we're assessing here is how much additional tax revenue is projected to be created by a particular project. And then we also look at the environmental benefits. So that is looking at how much will someone's product decrease carbon dioxide emissions and other pollutants. And then we also evaluate other benefits as well, such as unemployment, whether you're located in um, a county with high unemployment. We look at job creation. We look at whether you're emerging strategic industry and whether the manufacturing process is more sustainable, more efficient than uh, the, I guess whether it's more sustainable than your competitors or your past baseline. And in order for applicants to be eligible, these things altogether must produce a net benefit, meaning that um, for the amount of a sales tax that you're requesting, that the benefit that you bring to the state must exceed what we're providing. Okay, so right now, like I said, we're in the middle of a cycle right now. We're running through our first round of applications. We started taking applications on April 10th. The deadline was May 1st. And we are looking to bring those applications before our board in August. We have 98 million of our $100 million left. It looks like we are oversubscribed. And so it's possible that by August 18th, we will have exhausted our funds. But if we don't, then we will hold another application period from August 7th through August 28th. And then those applications will be brought before our board for consideration at the December 8th meeting. And so I've put up the link to our application materials and then also to our application announcement. Okay, so this is really just an overview of our application process from start to end. I will go over it very briefly, but essentially, again, there's an application submission. There's two parts to the application. First, you're going to tell us how you think you qualify, and there's going to be that part B that looks over the environmental and the fiscal benefits that I just went over. Um, and then there's a fee that is involved. There are application fees and then administrative fees. And the reason for that is because we're not subsidized program. And so we have to charge fees in order for us to administer the program. Once the application is submitted, we'll have our analysts work on the application, making sure that everything's filled out correctly, that the assumptions that are provided are reasonable. And then we look at whether we want to go ahead and give a recommendation to our board. If we proceed with a positive recommendation, we will go before the board, they will vote on it, and then if approved, you'll enter into a regulatory agreement with us within 30 days of the approval. Now, to enter into the legal agreement, there are admin fees, like I mentioned. Either you'll pay $15,000, which is the minimum of the fees, or half of the max admin fee that's due. And so the max admin fee is up to $350,000. But as you can see, like we do have a cap for the program, and so we have a $15 million cap. And so if you're saving $15 million in sales tax, like $350,000 is for a fee is a drop in the bucket for you. And there are also compliance reports that come along with getting an award. You would have to report to us semi-annually on what you're purchasing. And then there are also annual reports to look at how the project is doing. So we'll look at like job count, we'll look at taxes that are being paid, things of that sort. And that will continue for 12 years. Each company has 5 years to make purchases. And then there is a requirement that at least 15% of the equipment is purchased within the first 2 years of those 5 years. All right. I know I put Q&A here, but I think we might have a Q&A session at the end. So I'm just going to go ahead and end my presentation there. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, C, for your great presentation. I would like to remind attendees that they can submit their questions via the Q&A widget. I will now hand it over to Scott Beckner, Environmental Program Manager with CalRecycle's Business Assistance and Market Development section to start his presentation. Scott, please go ahead and begin.
All right. Thank you so much, Nick. Bear with me while I do the slideshow here. All right. It's probably going to show my notes first because it keeps doing that for some reason. How is it looking?
We're seeing notes on there.
We're seeing notes still, yeah.
That's what I figured. Swap, now how are we doing?
Just a second. It is still, try again, Scott, for me. It's still, on my view, it's still the notes setting.
Okay. Sorry about this, everybody.
No worries. It doesn't look like it got selected.
Okay, I'm going to share one more time. Apologies. Great. Share. Share. How are we looking?
There it goes. Perfect.
Fantastic. All right. Yes, always a great way to start. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Scott Beckner. I oversee the Business Assistance and Market Development team here at CalRecycle. Our team manages a variety of programs, including the Tire Incentive Grant Program and the Tire-Derived Aggregate Grant Programs, which Jeff Lynn is going to talk about after my presentation. But for now, I'll focus on our business assistance services we provide, as well as our loan programs. So my approach here is to provide everybody with a good sense of what it will look like if and when you reach out to us for assistance, and what we're doing in the background, and then finally what the loan process looks like if you are interested in a loan. So one of the most important things we do as civil servants is come up with acronyms that are easy to understand and say. Z, I know you, this is Kaif, or whatever, how you pronounce it, it's not your fault. But along those lines, I'll start with covering the business assistance team, or the BAT team. Yes, I know BAT team would technically be business assistance team, but the Batman reference is definitely worth it. The team's formal mission is to support California's recycling and manufacturing by helping businesses establish, relocate, or expand using California-generated materials. That starts by seeing where each business is in its journey and then pointing them to the right next steps and resources and helping them along that journey. Most folks show up to us asking about loans or other kind of financial incentives, but the BAT team often uncovers other opportunities. We were kind of the one-stop shop / hub for California's circular economy. Some of the services we provide are site selection and permitting, linking waste streams to manufacturing supply chains, business financial planning, targeted tax incentives, etc. And we do that through our partnerships with GoBiz, iBank, CAFTA, the local zone administrators, which I'll talk about in a bit, and other agencies and nonprofits that we have relationships with. If a business is loan eligible, then it's handed off to the loans unit, which runs the evaluation and underwriting, which I'll go over later in the slides. So if you are meeting with the BAT team, one of the key partners we regularly bring to the table are our local experts from the Recycling Market Development Program, or RMDZ, which is essentially a statewide network of local and regional partners we call zone administrators. Some of the services offered through the program include on-the-ground knowledge and local relationships, business referrals, permitting assistance, local incentives, and promotion for qualified businesses operating within the zones. The RMDZ program also provides zone incentive funds to each zone, which the zone administrators can use for a variety of purposes, including local outreach, business lead development and tracking, and some direct zone assistance, including some pilot projects here and there, which is really exciting. These funds help incentivize local governments to engage with their local recycling sector businesses, ultimately helping expand the use of recycled materials. So I want to walk you through what happens when, as a recycling manufacturing business, you reach out to the BAT team. During the initial inquiry, which could be an email or phone call, we collect as much information as we can, working through the key questions you see here on the slide. We're basically trying to paint the picture and understand what the business does, how it operates, what feedstock it uses, and what processes or technologies are involved. And then finally, what products they might be producing. Once we have that information, it's our next step to prepare a coordinated meeting with the business so we can dig deeper and determine what support will help them move forward. The key here is just to set up a productive and thorough meeting with key experts. So we'll loop in others. To do this, we cross-reference the project address with our RMDZ map. We check with our GoBiz regional map and colleagues to find the appropriate specialist. If a partner agency can't attend the meeting, we always make sure to introduce them by email to the business so that they have their support going forward. Now, say it's a tire recycling company that's making a product our team isn't completely familiar with. In those cases, we'll also turn to our running list of CalRecycle experts, including the experts on Moose's team and others. If in our initial conversations we find that they're interested in a loan, after confirming that the project is something that may be eligible, the team sends the business what we call Loan App Part A, and our staff works closely with the applicants to paint the clearest picture in the application. In the case of a tire project, our team would also provide links to CalRecycle's other tire-related programs, instructions on how to stay up to date on emails so that they can stay informed about changes that may affect them. Business would be introduced to their zone administrator, GoBiz, and others. And then once the Loan App Part A is reviewed and it's confirmed that the project is eligible for a loan, it is referred to a loan officer. All right, so loans. When it comes to loans, our team administers 3 programs, each with its own unique eligibility criteria and source of funding, which really guides how we can spend the money. These are the tire equipment loan program, the RMDZ loan program, and the GHG reduction loan program. That's greenhouse gas. I'm going to go into some detail on each, but I want to note that you don't necessarily need to know which program you're applying for. Our team will meet with you and select the best program that works for you. And it's the same initial application, but it's helpful to know what's out there. First, tire equipment loan program. This one's designed to support the development of alternatives to landfilling tires. It's specifically for tires and help reduce illegal dumping and unnecessary stockpiling. So this one would fund machinery and equipment specifically, such as shredders, granulators, screening balers, or even equipment that they're for projects making end products like extruders and molding equipment, that kind of thing. We could also fund leasehold improvements related to that equipment as part of this program. For the next 5 years, well, 4 now, the program has $1 million annually, which is reallocated to other priorities at the end of the year if we don't spend it. As with all of our loan programs, the final loan amount is determined through, staff analysis, applicants' needs, financial capacity, and cash flow ability to repay, the kinds of things a bank would do. Interest rate, generally 4%. Maximum loan amount is $1 million for this one because we only have $1 million each year. And the loan term is typically 10 years, but we have some flexibility there. Next up, the big boy. This is our big program. We have our MDZ program. This has been around since the early 1990s and continues to be one of our longest running financial assistance tools at CalRecycle. Today, we have about 22 million available in the bank ready to loan with a total portfolio of something like $80 million. So these loans typically support industrial equipment purchases, but we also can couple that with real estate purchases, leasehold improvements, and working capital needs, all related to the core project that is eligible. Projects can include manufacturing of recycled content products or producing value-added intermediate feedstocks. Unlike the tire loan program, this is much more open to more than tires, including organics, plastics, textiles, glass. So if you're in other businesses as well, this might be really interesting. As with all of our loan programs, financial eligibility will be covered later in what we call the 5 C's of credit. But the typical loan amount here is somewhere between $250,000 and $10 million. With a 4% interest rate and 10-year terms, but both the interest rate and terms are technically, we have some flexibility there, but we're usually at about 4% and 10-year. Finally, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Loan Program. This was established in 2014. Certain tire projects are eligible for it, but it has really specific requirements in reducing quantifiable greenhouse gases, quantifiable measurable reductions. Borrowers are required to report performance metrics throughout the life of the loan, and there's some other additional requirements on this above and beyond what the other programs have. Again, like the RMDZ loan program, this one's open to a variety of projects, organics, plastics, etc. And interest rate on this as well is 4%. Maximum loan amount is $2 million, and loan terms are typically 10 years. So hopefully I didn't lose you there, but really the takeaway here is we have multiple loan programs each with a different purpose that we can select from depending on the specifics of the project once we develop our relationship with you and understand your project. So once we decide a application is eligible to apply for the loan, our loan teams will work hand in hand with the applicants to develop the rest of the application package. That includes documentation and everything you would typically provide to a bank, projections, etc. Underwriting uses the 5 C's of credit to assess creditworthiness, and character, basically your reputation. Do you pay your bills and keep your promises? Capacity, can you actually afford to pay this back based on your income and debts? Capital, how much skin do you have in the game, like savings or assets you're bringing to the table? Collateral, what can the lender take if you ghost on the loan? And then finally, conditions, which kind of takes all the other C's into account and sets specific conditions on a loan, like interest rate, terms, controls on how the funds are accessed or used. These are often shaped by market conditions or used to offset risks in other areas of the 5 C's, like weaker credit or limited collateral. But in short, overall, the process looks like this. Business assistance team intake helps the business assemble the complete Part A application. Then referral to the loans team, we gather the remaining documents and build the full application package. Then underwriting, the team does their analysis and evaluates the project. Then we take it to a loan committee, which is an external panel of subject matter experts from the public and private lending sectors, and they provide independent checks on our underwriting and a recommendation. Then we go to what we call an RFA, which is a request for approval for funding. This is the director or deputy director, depending on the size of the loan, would decide whether to approve the loan based on staff recommendations and loan committee input. Once approved, the loan documents are sent, are signed, and funds are dispersed to escrow. And we go through a few more, steps of the process: UCC filings, where we secure collateral, and ultimately loan servicing, collecting payments, monitoring project progress, and collecting annual compliance. And that's our program in a nutshell. If your business is interested in taking advantage of any of these services, please reach out to the business assistance team at the email shown at the top left to begin the process. That's bzassist@calrecycle.ca.gov. And we're looking forward to hearing from you and expanding California's waste tire infrastructure.
Thank you so much, Scott, for your great presentation. Again, I would like to remind attendees that they can submit their questions via the Q&A widget down below. Next, I will hand it over to Jeff Lynn, Supervisor with CalRecycle's Business Assistance and Market Development section, to start his presentation. Jeff, please go ahead and begin.
Great. Thank you, Nick, and good morning, everybody. Let me start sharing my screen and make sure that the presentation is up and running. Give me a second. Oh, here we go. All right. So again, yes, I'm Jeff Lynn. I'm a supervisor in the Business Assistance Market Development section. I do work with Scott. And as you noticed from his last slide, contact slide, I am also supervising over the business assistance team as well. So if you have any, questions on those loans that we have, you can certainly, use the business assist inbox and or contact me as well. So just a little plug there for those programs. But I'm here to present on the tire-derived aggregate grant and tire incentive grant programs. I do supervise those programs as well, so they are part of the band section. So what I'm going to do, obviously, I will be giving high-level overviews of both of those programs. So let's go with. Hold on for a sec. For some reason, I am not able to forward.
I see your mouse, Jeff. If you lower it to the left corner, should pop up on there.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
For that. There we go. Here we go. All right. So as I mentioned, we're going to go over the tire-derived aggregate grants program again at a high level. So what is TDA? I'm sure pretty much most of the attendees here know of it, but just to give a little bit of a background, tire-derived aggregate is produced from shredded tires, and TDA as a material has inherent beneficial properties as an engineering material replacement for traditional aggregates. TDA is lightweight, free draining, and a less expensive alternative to conventional lightweight aggregates. And so the TDA grant program does provide assistance to civil engineers in solving a variety of engineering challenges, again, using a TDA material. So eligibility. Eligible applicants include, these are the three main ones, California local jurisdictions, cities, counties, special districts, or state agencies as well. They can also apply private for-profit entities and tribal entities as well. As far as the eligible project types, there are about 5 main ones. First is a mechanically stabilizing project, or as an example of that, retaining walls would be a model for that. Low impact development, or stormwater mitigation as a particular example. Next, we have lightweight fill, Example of that would be slope stabilization, embankment fills, or landslide repairs. Next, we have vibration mitigation as a potential project. Common, I guess, kind of model would be filling under rail lines for that. And then last, landfill applications. Some examples of that would be leachate and gas collection systems, drainage layers, or leachate injection. Okay, some program highlights. Right now, $750,000 is available for allocation for this fiscal year. Not for this current fiscal year. It's for fiscal year 2026, 2027, and that would be starting with TDA 28th cycle. There are 3 cycles, by the way, with this within this fiscal year. So the first one, TDA 28, the applications were already open. It was open May 2026, and the applications for that cycle are due mid-July 2026. So just continuing on to the application theme. So the next application after TDA 28 will open when this first solicitation closes. And that second solicitation applications will be due mid-October of 2026. And then the third application cycle will open around mid-October. And then that last cycle will be due around mid-January of 2027. Next, projects must use a minimum of 500 tons. So 200 tons for the impact development projects or low impact development projects. Applicants can apply for a maximum of $375,000. All right. Well, we think you might like to see a couple of examples, real world examples of TDA material usage. So this one is one of the low impact development projects utilized by the city of Ukiah. As you can see by the slide, they were able to divert 34,900 tires. And just a real quick, overview of this project. This was back in 2016. The city placed underground bioretention swales along a newly reconstructed roadway. The purpose of these swales is to capture stormwater. So as you can see in the left picture, underneath that pile of TDA material are pipes to actually collect the water. And then about 350 tons of TDA was used around those pipes, which is equivalent to almost 35,000 tires. So that's quite a lot that we were able to divert. Actually, the city itself has a nice 2.5-minute demo video on their website showing the TDA placement in action. The URL link is there under the pictures if you would like to see it. Although I tried to open it and it couldn't quite go, so hopefully you might have better luck looking at the video or maybe just contacting the city itself if you really want to see the video for that. Okay. Next, we have another TDA project. This actually dealt with vibration mitigation. Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority utilized this TDA for their project, and 300,800 tires were diverted. So again, a really substantial amount of tires being diverted out. So the Santa Clara VTA was awarded a grant back in 2014. And in this slide, it shows that TDA was used to absorb and reduce the vibration that is produced when trains, especially freight trains, come along densely populated communities. And as you can see in these two pictures, nearby houses are so close that they are actually really directly impacted by the nuisances that these trains produced. So the placement of the TDA along and under the rail lines helped facilitate some of these vibration and noises as these trains passes by. So, really important that the use that TDA had, especially for those homes right there on the tracks. Over 3,000 tons of TDA material along 10 miles of rail tracks was used in this project, again, which equates to over 300,000 tires diverted from the landfill. And we do have another example here. This one with regards to lightweight fill. So Yuba County applied for a grant. This was back in 2017 after a very rare wet winter season in Northern California. These storms at that time caused many rural waterways to give way to Mother Nature, and the county had multiple sites, more than 10, that needed repairs. And because of TDA's proven advantages over conventional aggregates, TDA was used to help stabilize these roads for future winter storms. So the county used TDA to help repair these landslides, and one of the challenges is the county and its contractors faced was transporting the material to those very remote, rugged terrains. So the 18-wheeler trucks, which are usually used to transport the material, couldn't make it to those construction sites, obviously. So as a result, they had to use smaller, lightweight trucks to haul the material from the staging area down the hill. But all in all, again, the county was able to divert 325,193 tires. So again, a really substantial amount. So it's, again, very useful. All right, well, those are the examples. Hopefully those were very helpful to you. And for more information, I would definitely encourage you to go to our TDA grant program webpage, links over there. And also encourage you to subscribe if you're interested in the program and get any updates. We do have a listserv to receive important program information updates. So the link to subscribe is there for that. Okay, now I'm going to switch gears and go to our tire incentive program overview. And what is TIP? So TIP is a successful competitive market development grant program that expands commercial business demands for different and high value added tire-derived products, or TDP, by providing financial incentives to eligible manufacturers. And the reimbursement is provided, as the bullet shows, as an incentive payment to businesses that use chrome rubber in eligible products or can substitute chrome rubber for virgin rubber, plastic, or other raw materials and products that are sold. So that's key, obviously. We're definitely wanting to push the use of chrome rubber in the products. So that's important. Eligibility. So eligible applicants include manufacturers that produce an eligible product and waste tire processors that also manufacture an eligible product. And the eligible products include, but are not limited to, so these seem to be about 4 most common types of products that we're reimbursed for. Flooring underlayment, rubberized flooring, various building products, and various traffic devices. Some other side notes, only, this is important, only California generated chrome rubber from California waste tire processors can be utilized. Applicants must be California based or incorporated in another state, qualified to do business in California, and that also has with a manufacturing facility in California as well. And applications must have been in operation for at least 3 years. Okay, some program highlights. Again, this is really for this coming fiscal year 2026, 2027. It'll be TIP 14. That's the 14th cycle for this program. $3 million is available for allocation. Now, I know the next bullet says the TIP 14 applications are open early summer 2026, due late summer. Some real quick update on that. About a week ago, about June 18th, we did release TIP 14 out and the notice of funding availability out online. So it is open right now. And the applications are due August 19th of this year. So just please take a note on that. In terms of amounts, there's a minimum that you can apply for $25,000, and the maximum award would be $650,000. And as a side note, also the program reimburses grantees quarterly via the incentive payments. Okay. So I think we also wanted to just kind of point out we do have a tire-derived product catalog, which is very useful. It's an online interactive catalog. It's designed to bring awareness about the broad range of products made from recycled tires, and the link is right there. It's very useful. And see, that'll be next. More information on the tire incentive program is right there as well. And as with TDA, we also have a tip listserv to receive important program updates of the for that. So please subscribe to that as well if you're interested in tip. And then that's pretty much it. Our contact information here. So, for our program staff, either Chris Henderson, who some of you have applied in the past, may be aware of, as well as Vanessa Fong, are part of the TIP and TDA program staff. Chris is actually on a little bit of extended leave right now. We hope to get him back sometime next month. In the meantime, Vanessa has done the sort of double duty and is covering both programs in his stead. So appreciate Vanessa's help on that. Also myself, so as supervisor. So if you have any questions on either of those programs, please, you can shoot an email or call Vanessa or myself, and we will try to answer any of your questions there. And that concludes my presentation. I'm sure with the Q&A, we'll have a period later on in the session, or you can continue to send questions through the Q&A box, and we'll try to answer those as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for your great presentation. Again, I would like to remind attendees that they can submit their questions via the Q&A widget. I'd also just like to note that we will be having several grant programs being presented on. So if you have questions on a specific grant program, please include that in your questions. Okay, I will now hand it over to Noel Davis, Grant Manager with CalRecycle's Division of Circular Economy, to start his presentation. Noel, please go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Nick, and welcome to our stakeholders and participants to this 2026 Virtual California Tire Workshop Series, Program Funding and Grants Updates. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of 6 grant programs, but what I would like you to pay a special attention to is the webpage link at the bottom of this slide, the https:// calrecycle.ca.gov/funding. And the reason I want to point that out is because, like most interested parties, they want to be able to access information about all the grant programs. So when you go to this link, one of the first things you'll see is a title that says Open Applications. If you select that link within this URL, you will be able to see all the open grant programs that CalRecycle offers. Second thing on this webpage is if you go to the bottom of the link, you'll see a list of all the active grants and payment programs. So you can find all the grant programs that I cover and the ones previously discussed. And then the other thing is that you will be able to see listservs for all the grant programs, or you can select the Get Email Updates about specific grants that you're interested in. And I would encourage you to subscribe so that you get all the detailed information about the upcoming grants, such as the request for award, and the notice of funding availability. Next slide, please. Okay, this grant program is the Rubberized Pavement Grant Program. I'm one of the grant managers that oversees this, along with the lead grant manager, which is Farah Fadragon. This grant program provides competitive grants for rubberized pavement applications that usually is done by the public works of the jurisdiction. There's two types of projects that you can apply for, or both. One is the rubberized asphalt concrete hot mix. You'll see an example of that in the photograph just below this slide here. And the other one is the chip seal application. Both of these projects are available for each applicant to apply for, or you can combine both of them. The main thing is to consider with each of these projects is that there is a minimum pound or minimum tonnage for hot mix that you must meet, and that is 2,000 tons. And for chip seal, the minimum amount of coverage is 40,000 square yards. That's important to note because when you apply for these grants, if you do not meet those minimum requirements, your application will be disqualified. Secondly, the NOFA has already been, or is planned for release July of this year. And we have $6,371,315 allocated. Maximum grant awards for individual grants are $375,000, and for regional is $575,000, and for qualifying Indian tribes, $750,000. So keep that in mind when you're applying in July if you're interested. This grant is offered every year, and I will note that there's a limit, or there's a capped amount for each of these types of projects. We recently changed it from 6 to 8. So you can apply for up to 8 rack hot mix projects and 8 chip seal projects. After that, you're no longer eligible to apply for this grant. Next slide, please. The next grant program is called the Farm and Ranch Solid Waste Cleanup and Abatement. This provides fundings to clean up and abate illegally disposed waste on farm and ranch properties. The notice of funds application or availability is due on July 8th of this year. That would be cycled FR 91. There is $797,000 available for fiscal year 2026-27, which will start July 1 of this year. Maximum grant awards are up to $200,000 per applicant per fiscal year, and $50,000 is the maximum per cleanup site. Private landowners are not eligible for this grant. They must request an application to be submitted on their behalf by a local agency that is also an eligible applicant. Also, the parcel where the site is located must be zoned or authorized for agricultural rangeland as defined in Title 14 of the CCR, Section 17991, open paren D as in David, close paren. Next slide, please. The next grant is the Local Government Waste Tire Cleanup, also known as TCU. This provides funding for collection and disposing of recycled waste tires from tire piles and illegal dumping areas. The notice of fund availability closed on April 14th of this year. That would be cycle number TCU 21. There was 1.5 million available, or there is 1.5 million available for fiscal year 2026-27. The maximum grant awards are $100,000 for individual awards and $250,000 for regional grant awards. The next cycle will occur in fiscal year 2028-29. Next slide, please. Okay, this grant is called the Local Government Waste Tire Amnesty, also known as TA for the acronym. The notice of funds available for this particular grant is tentative for spring of 2027, which would be cycle TA9. There's 1.5 million available for this fiscal year. That's fiscal year 2027-28. The maximum grant awards are up to $40,000 for individual awards and $90,000 for regional grant awards. These grants are not intended for the disposal of waste tires from waste tire generating businesses. Amnesty events allow citizens to bring waste tires to convenient locations for proper management. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the Local Government Waste Tire Enforcement Grant, also known as TEA, and this provides funding to local jurisdictions to support local inspection and enforcement of waste tire generators and haulers. The applications are tentative for fall 2026, which would be TEA 34 cycle. There is $6,250,000 available for the upcoming fiscal year. The maximum grant awards are by population. There's $350,000 for applicants with qualifying populations of 1 to 900,000, $500,000 for applicants with qualifying populations of 901,001 to 2 million, and $650,000 for applicants with qualifying populations of 2 million, 1 or more. Funds may be used for personnel costs, surveillance, training, travel, equipment, and education to generators and haulers. And our next slide, please. In the last grant program, the Local Conservation Corps grant program, also known as RLC, this provides funding to local CCs, or conservation corps, to provide services and implement litter abatement projects related to the collection and recovery of waste tires. The applications are tentative for winter of 2027, which will be cycle RLC 42. Again, the allocation is based on static amounts that come from a variety of different funding sources. So I cannot definitively give you what the allocation would be, but I can tell you that the previous cycle's allocation, RLC 41, was $30,655,592. Once we are able to obtain the cost of a living adjustment that comes or sourced from the California Beverage Container Recycling Fund, we will be able to give you that specific allocated amount. My guess is it'll be more because COLAs usually increase, not decrease. That's another reason to subscribe or at least visit that website that I told you about in the first slide so that you can receive up-to-date information about RFA award criteria, which is what would identify the allocation for the Local Conservation Corps grant program. I just wanted to add that each LCC performs activities consisting of beverage container collection services at large events, mostly in public spaces and for small businesses. Also activities related to waste tire collection and hauling for illegal dumping on public and private land, e-waste collection, including local drop-off events, and education and outreach activities. Next slide, please. This page gives you the contact for anything related to any of the 6 grant programs that I covered. These are the grant managers that can assist you in applying, because we do use an internet-based grant management system. Most applicants that apply for these programs usually encounter some barrier or hiccup. So contact these individuals, which are grant managers, for these specific grant programs to get assistance to get you on your way. With that, that concludes the grant program updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel, for your great presentation. Again, I would like to remind attendees they can submit their questions via the Q&A widget. I will now hand it over to our last presenter, Joe Javorchek, CEO of 3D Plastics, Inc., to start his presentation. Joe, please go ahead and begin.
Hey, Joe, if you can come on camera, and then I'll share your presentation. And I'll ask you to unmute just so we get you up in there.
All right, let's see if we can get the video to go. You get my video on your side?
No, I'm not currently seeing you, but I know we were good at the beginning of the session. And let's see. There, I just did a request to ask start video.
Okay. Asking me to sign in.
Well, you're
How's
in,
that?
so you shouldn't need to. Oh, there we go. Excellent. Okay, give me just a second, and I'm going to bring up your PowerPoint. You can go ahead and start saying a few words while I work on getting your slide deck up for you.
Okay, well, are we live?
We are live, yes.
All right. Well, let me start before I talk about who we are and what we are. I want to talk about the programs we've heard this morning. I think it's really important to tell people right off the bat that the programs, Noel, Nick, Scott, Jeff's program, we've used these programs. These programs, without these programs, it would not be possible to be in California. California is a tough state to do business in. People ask us all the time, how do you make it in California? The way you make it in California is you take advantage of these programs that we're talking about this morning. They're meaningful. They provide a competitive edge. We compete against China on rubber products. Canada has a lot of stuff that they bring in here. And then we have, our own competitive amongst ourselves here in California and the rest of the states. So when it comes to the programs, they mean a lot. Tell you a little bit about us. Our dad started in 1962. I guess we should flip over to the next page. So our dad started in 1962 and in our garage. He came out from Nebraska during the war. Long story short, we ended up making chicken feeders. He was from a farm and he started making tooling for chicken feeders, and that kind of got us on the road. We were brought up in the plastic business. We were a custom molder. We made products for anybody and everybody. And I think a lot of my dad's background being from Nebraska, they were they're farmers. They were into recycling. You didn't throw anything out at that time. So we started making, different products for different people. And one of the first companies that we did skateboards. We did 7,000 skateboards a day and 44,000 wheels. 40% of those skateboards that we made were made recycled content. That was post-industrial material. We were mixing copolymer and homopolymer plastics and making skateboards out of them. So early on, that's in the early 70s, we had this recycled theme going through the business. We started we started doing sawhorses. That was another business that we did. First we were in drainage, but then we got into sawhorse business. And we were running sawhorses, and I was at a trade show at McCormick Place in Chicago, the hardware show. And the guy came up to me and he said, "Man, that would be a great highway barricade." And we were like, "Yeah, what is that? What's a highway barricade?" And just so happens that year it was in Long Beach. So we went on down to the trade show in Long Beach and we walked the show and saw what the needs were. And we saw, a couple different products and thought, oh, this is probably an area that we could go in. At that time, we were making 500,000 sawhorses a year. It was a crazy business. Again, 40% recycled content. So we decided next year we had a trade show in San Antonio, Texas. So we went, and we started out with a barricade. And once we got our barricade going, people said, "Oh, you have to have a delineator. So you got to have a delineator if you want to be in this business." Let's go to the next slide. So that's what a delineator looks like. That is 42-inch ring top. For us, people in the industry, they have knob tops and all kinds of different names for all kinds of tops, but we like our top. Funny thing about that delineator is that it requires ballast. And at the time, so we're new to this business, so we've got barricades, we've got, different little things going on, but delineator seems to be a market that we need to be in. So we start blow mold. Actually, we weren't blow molding. We were having people blow mold for us. We made the tooling and we were buying rubber bases. And the rubber bases, we didn't know the difference between a good rubber base and a bad rubber base. But apparently, we started off buying bad rubber bases. They were 8, 10, 12, and 15-pound bases. So sometimes you'd buy a delineator and you'd literally get a complete recycled car tire on the bottom, depending on the weight that you were buying. And we started getting parts back. The delineator sold for $15. And you'd get your $15 delineator back as the $3 base that you sold with it was falling apart. And what we found was people were adding like sand to the base. And they were mixing crumb rubber and sand, and then of course, your binder, and the bases were coming apart. So it wasn't very long until we realized we have to be in the rubber business. Enter Calvin Young. I don't know how it came. We were in a RMDZ zone, and I reached out, and they hooked me into the state, and I ended up working with Calvin, and he was just amazing. And that was 2001. And so we started in 2001 talking about, how we could get in the rubber in the rubber business. And next thing you know, a program was developed to help us create the machinery. And that was in 2003 when we started on that. And I don't know, it was really amazing. We started with just some simple bases, and then one thing led to another, and we had 8, 10, 12, 15-pound bases. Then because the base business was really starting to go well, we developed other products, these stacker cones that are shaped like a Christmas tree with bigger bases on them, up to 20 pound. Then we had 30-pound bases. And all the way through this business, this development of products, California stood by us, and they gave us programs to help us get into these businesses. It was, truly without it, it just would not have happened. Go to the next slide. So as a company, we started developing, so now that you see the products up on the screen, you'll go, oh man, I've seen those. I know those products. There's a couple manufacturers, but I'm not going to say that we get all the business, because we don't. We get a small amount of the business because it's a huge industry. But the products that we make, we're really proud of. And if you look at the picture, you're going to see a lot of ballast, a lot of rubber on those parts. And every one of those parts that you see on the screen, those would not exist without our program in the state. We honestly we just could not have afforded it. We're not in some business that has huge margins or anything like that. That's just not the way business works in this industry. So as a company, we've still tried to do our original mix. That means we still do custom molding. We run, if you've had any vegetable in the state of California, it came out of a seed tray that we made. We do a couple billion transplants a year out of trays that we've made over the past 30 years. So we're still doing contract molding, but our focus is on highway safety. Something that happened when we got into the rubber business, other people started coming to us saying, hey, can you make this out of rubber? Can you make that? Next thing you know, we were making solar blocks. What is a solar block? When you see a solar array up on a roof system, They don't want that array sitting on the roof. They want they want there to be an insulating factor so you don't have metal on the roof. So we were making these huge feet that would sit down on the roof and keep that structure stable and not wearing through the roof structure. And then from that, we started making roof blocks. Those are blocks that go up on top of the roof, and plumbers run it to run their pipes, and electricians do it. So again, we replaced a piece of wood with a piece of crumb rubber, 10 mesh for most of everything that we do. And let's go to the next slide. And so, once we got into that, we started finding out that we needed certifications. So all of our products had to meet certain certifications. You had to, your part couldn't go through a windshield. It could, it had to last a certain amount of time, take a certain amount of hits from cars. So that meant that the products that we offered had to be a premium product. They had to be, this was not, I'm not saying that the parts from China were bad. I don't want to, do that, but our products are just better. Some rubber is fabulous material to work. I'm not going to say it works for every application, but it certainly works for most of the applications that we do here. If you look at the products, you'll see that all these products are, the bollards, channelizers, all those things that you see, the markers, the dots going down the highway. Those are all the products, but all those products came after having a delineator with a rubber base. That's where it started. Now we had to have something that went into the industry, and people that got the product realized it was a premium product. So, using crumb rubber doesn't mean that you're sacrificing it. Doesn't mean that you're getting a lesser thing because it's recycled. In our case, it's absolutely a premium. Let's go to the next slide. So a commitment to growing. Wow. Lots of growth happening here. Because of the crumb rubber, we are now venturing into speed bumps, parking chocks that you see in parking. If you go in a parking lot, your front tire hits that parking block. So the rubber's taking us in a whole different industry now. We're now going into the parking lot industry. Parking chocks, mountable curbs. If you'll see in a lot of cities now, they're putting in curb systems instead of concrete. And these are usually, you'll see this curb system and you'll see devices like delineation devices on top of the curb. We're now building the tooling to make all those out of crumb rubber. So we're investing heavily in a whole new tool program. The numbers you see, waste tires diverted, crumb rubber repurposed, those are good numbers, but we can do a lot better. And that's our focus. Our focus is, how do we take something that we've been really good at and make it really great? That's kind of direction that we want to go with. Let's go to the next slide. So again, before I get into the, it says right there, our business doesn't exist in California without the sport of CalRecycle. I just want to really make sure that I hit home on that, because it's something that we get it. I'm not going to say I get that question daily, but I get it a couple times a week. We have customers nationwide. We do some stuff in Europe, and all the time people are asking us, California, how you doing that? And the programs that you see listed below, we have used all of those programs, every one of those programs. And the people that you talk to when you apply for these programs, the real people, they call you back. They respond. You don't leave a recording and then wait for a call back. You're going to get a call back. And I think that that's a big piece of us being successful. Of course, we could be more successful, but certainly I think that these programs have made it possible for us to continue to dream about new products. And you know, what do they say? If you can dream it, you can do it. And you don't do it without the support of this stuff right on the screen. I want to tell you about our business growth. Let's go to the next slide. So all the growth in our business, you know, we have a lot of products. I think we have 40,000 SKUs. But those products, our product growth. So if you see volume increase, you know, that's just our standard growth, let's say. But the product offerings, that 20%, that's 20% more due to the speed bumps, the parking chalks, mountable curbs, things like that. And it brings us to a 30% product line growth. Again, all this growth is driven by crumb rubber products. So I don't want you guys to go out and compete against me, but I want to tell you that crumb rubber is a meaningful thing. Let's go to the last page. So our goal is, you know, how do we so when guys we do, you know, the barricades every day. We're building barricades every day, and our slogan that the guys on the floor use is, you know, they're constantly saying one barricade, one life, one barricade, one life. And it's true. The products that we make save lives, and we're really proud of that. It means a lot to us. And you know, we sell to everybody, cities. Well, we sell through distributors, and they sell to the cities, the counties, the road guys, all those people. We're now moving into big box retail. We're online, Home Depot and Lowe's, and so there's a lot of stuff there. If you're looking for um, rubber products and things like that, look us up, give us a try. But again, um, we're here in California to stay, and a big piece of it staying is this program. Thanks again for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joe, for your great presentation. We will now start the question and answer portion of the session. So for our attendees, if you haven't done so already, please enter your question using the Q&A widget. Again, if you want to ask a specific presenter a question, we ask that you please include their name at the beginning. And if we cannot get through all the questions in our time allotment, we will be sure your questions are answered following the webinar. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, who is going to be assisting us with our Q&A portion. Kevin?
Thanks, Nick. Yes, our first question, we do have some questions on the Q&A widget. Our first question is for C with Katefa. And C, I know you answered this in the chat, but this was answered a few times, and I think it's good to ask live on air. And the question is, can special districts apply for this grant, and would it cover the overhead costs of the project/program?
Yeah, so special districts can apply, government entities, other types of entities, LLCs, corps, limited partnerships, those are all eligible. This would not cover overhead. This is specifically only for equipment, tangible personal property.
Perfect. Thank you, C. Sticking with C, I wanted to ask, I see a question. What types of manufacturers benefit most from the sales and use tax exclusion program?
And so earlier I spoke about 4 different pathways in which a company can apply. Typically, the ones that are producing a green product, so either those under the alternative source pathway, advanced transportation, or recycling pathways would probably in the competitive round. Say if we have several companies applying and you know, it exceeds the funds that we have in the competitive round, these types of applications would have a competitive edge. We typically give a little bit more points for those that are making a green product because obviously they're a little bit more, the focus is more on the environmental aspect of a project rather than how someone is making something. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, C. The next question is for the TDA tip program. So I think we'll ask this to Jeff. Can out-of-state company participate in the grant program, and is exporting tires to green destinations eligible at the same rate per pound?
All right, thanks, Kevin, for the question. So, we'd have to relay to the application guidelines and instructions for that question. Page 5 of the guidelines specifically states that eligible applicants must be California-based or incorporated in another state or country with an existing manufacturing facility in California. So the applicant must be qualified, and I mentioned this in my presentation, to do business in California and to be in good standing with all applicable California state agencies, including, but also not limited to, the Secretary of State and the Franchise Tax Board. And in addition, the business must have all appropriate licenses and permits. Also within the guidelines, they also state that eligible products must be manufactured from California-generated waste tires. So that's key. The waste tire itself, if you're exporting that, it is not in that form, it is not eligible for reimbursement. And so it's only products that are sold from the production of the waste tires is reimbursable.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. And sticking with Jeff, I have one more for you. I operate a manufacturing business in California, but I've only been in business 2 years. Is there any flexibility to allow my participation in the tire incentive program for the fiscal year 2026-27?
Right. Again, I think I did mention this in my presentation, but applicants that operate a manufacturing business in California, they have to be operational. They have to have been operational for at least 3 years. And again, I refer back to the application guidelines, page 4 of the guidelines, and it does state that specifically. So.
Thank you, Jeff. Now let's transition to Noel. I see there's a question for you. The question is, thank you for sharing all these grant opportunities. How can I be notified that the applications are open?
Okay, as I mentioned in my presentation, that URL, the Uniform Resource Locator website that I referenced, you want to access that URL, which I'll repeat it again. It's https://calrecycle.ca.gov/funding. If you go to that website, what you want to do, if you want to be notified of all the grants that I covered and all the ones that were discussed from the previous presenters, you'll want to go to the link that says get email updates about grants. You select that link and you have the option of selecting notification for all of them, or you can cherry pick the ones that you want, like say the tire incentive program or the tire-derived aggregate. You can actually subscribe to each one of those, and that will ensure that you receive up-to-date information about the notice to funds availability or the request for award criteria. That's where you want to go.
Perfect. Thank you for that detailed answer. Just to follow up on that and stick with grants, there's a question in the Q&A. If you receive a TCU grant, for example, can you apply to other grants that are related to tire collection and abatement as well? I'll just open that up to grant folks.
I could take that one. So did you want to provide an answer? Noel, or
I was just going to say that each of these grants are independent, so you could apply for each one. Each of them has their own eligibility requirements. That's why we invite you to go to the link, check out the eligibility requirement to make sure that you're eligible to apply. Most of the grants that I covered, they're only available to local jurisdictions. Okay, they're not readily available for consumers or residents of California. But to streamline the grant updates, we encourage you to visit the website.
Yeah.
thanks, Noel.
And so just to clarify, there it is a chance that someone can apply and meet all the criteria to be eligible for different grants at the same time. That is possible.
Theoretically, that is possible as long as they're not what we refer to as double dipping between the grant programs. So there would need to be a clear distinction, like on the work, for example, if they're in like the TCU program and they're doing maybe another solid waste cleanup and abatement grant or something along those lines. I mean, I think theoretically, yes, you can. It would just there would need to be a clear distinction between those two projects.
Gotcha. And thank you for that great conversation. I think there's enough time for one more question, and I really appreciate everyone's time. I just want to ask Scott, this one was answered in the chat, but I think it's good to just answer on air as well. Someone asks, of all the projects that that CalRecycle has funded, can you identify any tire recycling projects or equipment for tire recycling that have been funded and for how much?
Hey Scott, I think your mic's on the top. You got it.
There we go. Yeah, we've given over 20 loans to tire projects over the years, totaling well over $25 million. Median project size is about 1.5 million. Early in the program, it was a much smaller, but it's kind of averaged around 1.5 nowadays, including Joe's 3D plastics. And yeah, those projects have been everything from CRUM and TDA manufacturing to leasehold improvements, equipment for finished product manufacturing, some real estate here and there. So if you want more information on specific loans that we've given, I provided a link in the Q&A where you can search all of our loans and get links to relevant information.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you all. Now we will end our Q&A session. If you do have further questions, if you have questions that didn't get answered, please feel free to reach out to CalRecycle. We'd be happy to answer them. And with that, I will pass it back to Nick.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Just a very quick thank you to C, Scott, Jeff, Noel, and Joe for all your presentations today and being available to speak on all of the different funding opportunities that we have here in California. I will now like to turn it over to Kyle Pogue for some closing statements.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Also want to extend that thank you to all of you here for joining us for California's 2026 Tire Conference Series. I definitely want to extend CalRecycle's appreciation to Tomi and his Sacramento State team, our interpreters, our moderators, our presenters, and panelists for your contributions, and to all the attendees for your time and engagement. We hope you found these 8 sessions valuable and gained new insights into how we can continue moving the needle on waste tire recycling. We'll be sharing follow-up materials soon, including the recorded videos and a brief survey. I want to encourage you to take the survey so we can better develop content for our future conferences and any convenings we might hold. We do our conferences about every 18 months, so it helps inform that. Please note that if you left a session for the workshop series with any questions, reach out to Kevin Garrity, and I think we could put his email address up if that's possible. As we are happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I do want to note that our earlier session today, Environmental Insights, an important discussion was held and it did not allow all participants to enter the room. So we want to apologize for that and encourage you to watch it and submit any questions that you do have to Kevin. So let's keep the conversation going and continue supporting one another as we put these ideas into action. And I just want to say thank you, and we'll see you next time.